Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're going to be making a cork board. Well, before we get started on the woodworking aspect of the cork board, we need to actually make the cork board. And for that, we need some foam core and a roll of cork. I'm starting off with some 1/4 inch thick foam core board that I got at the local craft store. And this is the size of my cork board. So how I'm going to start this is by making the actual cork board. And I'm going to take some cork, I'm going to cut it a little oversized for what we need here. I'm going to use some spray adhesive, the same stuff you see me use with scroll saw patterns. I'm going to apply a very generous coat to this foam core, give it a couple minutes to tack up, and then I'm going to lay the foam down on top and trim it to size once it's dry. The one thing I will caution you about while cutting this is to make sure you have a nice sharp knife. My blade was a little dull at the beginning and I tore the cork on this corner. Now that's no big deal because we're going to hide that in the frame. And that's a great segue to move into getting some wood off of our rack. And for our frame, I think I'm going to go with oak. Well, it looks like we're going with availability, and what we have up there in the rack is a lot of scrap left over from that roll top desk of oak. So I'm going to take it over to the table saw and we're going to cut some strips that are 1/2 inch by 3/4 inch. We now need to cut a rabbet in those pieces. It's going to be on the 3/4 face. We're going to cut a rabbet that is going to be 5/16 of an inch deep, and we want to go 3/8 of an inch wide. You now want to put a fine crosscut blade into the saw, and we're going to set our miter fence at 45 and basically cut a frame. You have the pieces with the rabbet cut out for our cork board. It's really nothing special here. Just cut some 45s and make a frame for your cork board. Well, now it's time to glue up the frame. So just make sure that all your surfaces that are going to be glued up have a nice even coat of glue on them. And you know, normally I do splines on my frames, but this is a light duty corkboard frame, so it's not going to see much abuse. So for that reason, I'm going to just leave it as just glue joints. So glue up your frame and then come back and see me. Very important step when gluing up this frame, of course, is to remove the squeeze out that may interfere with your foam core being able to sit nicely inside your frame. So get all that squeeze out cleaned up as well before it dries. Well, once the glue on your frame is all dry, you can take it out of your clamp and give the frame a good sanding all over. Once you're happy with the sanding, just take one of your cork pieces or your cork board that you made and fit it carefully, there we go, inside your frame. Now, there's several ways that we can use to hold this into our frame, but for me, I'm going to be using some photo turns. So we're just eyeballing roughly where we want these photo turns to be. And once we get them roughly where we want, we can mark them and drill a pilot hole and screw them down to hold our cork in place. And once we get this last photo turn screwed in place, we're going to add a sawtooth hanger just to give us something to be able to hang it up with. And there you have it, a cork board. Guys, this is a great project again for using up more scrap. I mean, I have scraps from that roll top desk that are still on the rack and I keep finding projects for it. And this is a perfect project for it as you only need thinner material and you don't need such huge pieces. So once again, a great project for using up scrap. Guys, if you have a young one that's in school, whether it be grade school, high school, or post-secondary education like university or college, a corkboard above their desk is one of those things that'll help keep the clutter off their desk, so when they have their little notes that they're scribbling on and stuff like that, they have somewhere to put it. Great little project and a great little gift. You could customize it. You could scroll out their name and glue it on one of the frame pieces. You could scroll out the word, I don't know, notes or my stuff or something like that and glue it on. And then you almost end up with an heirloom piece. Now, this particular one with the foam core, the reason I added the foam core was to give extra depth for the pin to penetrate. The cork is rather thin and I wanted it to have some kind of backing board. The problem with that is on this particular cork board, I didn't use any kind of a hardboard backer. Now, if you're going to be putting this onto your child's wall, let's say, you may want to as well add a 1/8 inch thick or even a 1/16 inch thick MDF or hardboard backer. And then, of course, you would have to adjust your rabbet in the frame to accommodate that extra thickness. But what that will do is prevent the pin from punching through and digging into the wall. For me, this one's for the shop. I'm not too concerned about it. Guys, great little project with minimal amount of special buy material, being that all you really need as far as the project goes is to have the board, if you want it, being the foam board and the cork. The rest is probably stuff you have lying around your shop, and depending on how many cork boards you're going to make, the cost of those materials ends up to be next to nothing per cork board. Guys, I hope you're going to try this project for yourself. I hope you've enjoyed today's show, and I hope you're going to join me again next week for yet another woodworking video.